Why is it so hard for the church who claims to lift up the Bible? Do they not want to hear about new ideas, even expanded ideas on orthodoxy?
That's been a real frustration for me throughout most of my adult life.
This is Mickey Maudlin with Harper One, talking with Tom Wright at the Grand Duchess Bed and Breakfast in Red Hook, New York, talking to Tom Wright about his new book, Simply Jesus. You make a pretty provocative claim in this book that we're wrong about Jesus. How are we wrong?
I think we have diminished Jesus by trying to fit him into either the category of he was a social reformer who did some neat stuff and then died too young, or he died so that we could go to heaven, and what was all that earlier bit about.
What parts of our story about Jesus are wrong?
I think the most obvious thing that we can say right off the top is that the phrase kingdom of God or kingdom of heaven has routinely been understood as heaven as a place where we go, or we hope to go, after we're dead, and that's where God is king, and that's quite separate from who we are here and now, so that for many, many Christians, both scholarly and popular, both left-wing and right-wing, heaven is really the name of the game, and then this earth is just the place where that gets sorted out as to who's going where.
So Jesus is not talking about how to go to heaven?
Jesus is talking about God's new world. This sense of there being something new, yes, absolutely. But we have belittled that, and our talk about going to heaven in the Western tradition just doesn't get anywhere near the idea of God's kingdom arriving on earth as in heaven. And that's what Jesus is about.
Tom, in the book, you talk about someone reading your work and realizing that the church has domesticated him and diminished our portrait of Jesus in some way. What do you mean by that?
For so long, the church has looked at Jesus and thought that those stories in the Gospels must really have been either trying to prove that he was divine or to show us how to go to heaven. The New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the Gospels, are much, much more concerned with the question which Jesus was concerned with, which is how God was becoming king then and there in and through his own work. We've been captive to a diminished, domesticated, often over-spiritualized vision of Jesus. And it's
what do you mean over-spiritualized?
Over-spiritualized in that people have often lived in a world where something is either spiritual or it's earthly or worldly. And a lot of people were brought up with the words earthly and worldly as bad words. But the Jesus in the New Testament is into politics, he's into food and wine, he's into marriage and family, he's into all this stuff. For many people today, there is a fear that if God was really in charge, then God would be bullying us, because people's image of God is God as the big bad bully who's out to get us. And you have Jesus going around with people flocking to hear him, not because he was saying you've got to sit down, shut up and do as I tell you, but because he was saying, hey, God is becoming king. God's in charge now. So everything is different. And the way he was doing it was by healing and by having celebrations of this new state of affairs that was coming into being.
Have we got Jesus wrong after 2,000 years?
People often imagine that they come to a professor to get the answers, but actually, as I've often said to my students, no, you come here to learn what the questions are. And the point about Simply Jesus, and also how God became king, is to say, wait a minute, go away, rub your eyes, open them, and just try and get this bigger picture of Jesus. Don't flick back into the mindset that you started with. Try and hold your mind open wide enough to see what the story is really all about.